Hi, my name's Sean Ginevan. I'm with the Android Enterprise team here at Google, where I'm responsible for digital initiatives and partnerships for the team. And I'm here to talk to you about all the exciting new features that we have coming up in Android 11. Our team is responsible for Android's success when it's used in enterprise businesses. We work with a variety of partners, including device makers, mobile carriers, endpoint management companies, mobile operators, software vendors, and consultancies to ensure that they're getting the best out of the Android platform when they're providing solutions to enterprise customers. We're also responsible for product features that enterprise customers rely on, like Android's device management functions and best practices that we provide to enterprises to ensure that they're successful when they're using Android in their organization. Many of you know Android as a consumer platform that has provided mobile data access on smartphones and tablets to over 2.5 billion people across the world. But we see Android as an enterprise operating system that spans a variety of form factors and use cases. We work with manufacturers across the globe who create Android devices compliant with services like Google Play. And that means whether you're trying to enable employees with smartphones, frontline workers with rugged devices, create digital kiosks for customers to interact with, or build point solutions like point of sale systems or signage, there's an Android device that fits your need. And as an organization, when you know how to build Android apps on one form factor, you can tailor these applications to be redeployed onto another because Android represents a common platform, irrespective of the hardware that you choose. From when the Android Enterprise Management Framework was introduced in Android 5, we've made improvements each year to make Android even better for employees. From features like enterprise app distribution to separation of work data from personal, to managing custom hardware to locking application usage, there's a host of tools that allow you to configure Android so it provides the experience that your enterprise needs it to. We're going to talk a lot today about what's in Android 11, our seventh release of what we consider to be the modern way to deploy, manage, and utilize Android within enterprises. So, what's new in Android 11? For the enterprise team, our development efforts focused on three core themes. Trust and privacy is central. We continually work to ensure that Android keeps your enterprise data secure, but also ensure that the privacy of users is well respected. We've worked to make ease of integration and deployment a central theme to ensure that Android can be rolled out at scale within enterprises both large and small. And we invested in new experiences on Android to make sharing of data easier, both between your work and personal life and across devices as well. And we invested in new experiences on Android to make sharing of data easier between your work and personal life, as well as across devices. So let's kick off the conversation by talking about trust and privacy in Android 11. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Android, the platform takes a defense in depth approach towards securing both consumer and enterprise data alike. That security starts in the hardware, where a dedicated secure element takes on the most sensitive security functions, like validating that the operating system hasn't been tampered with and generating encryption keys. The OS platform has end to end security, including encryption of both data in motion and data at rest. We're able to update the operating system along with common attack surfaces like web browsers and email clients independently of each other in order to protect against threats. Google Play Protect uses Google's machine learning capabilities to limit malware that can reach the device and provides always on malware detection. And we wrap all of this with security and management tools that allow you to use popular mobility management systems like Google Cloud's G Suite and Google Identity Manager to enforce your enterprise's own custom security policies and configurations. The work we've done has been recognized by third parties like Gartner, who ranked Android strong in 36 out of 30 categories in a recent comparative analysis of security controls for mobile devices. Pixel, which is Google's own Android phone, ranked highest in 27 out of 30 categories. Our work has also been recognized through several certification bodies. We're proud to announce that Android 9 and 10 have completed several major security certifications. Android 9 and 10 have been certified under common criteria, an internationally recognized standard accepted across 31 countries. We used Google Pixel as our reference implementation, but all hardware manufacturers can use this work to streamline certification of their own devices. Android's implementation of Boring SSL for cryptography is now certified under FIPS 140 2. We also received a DISA Security Technical Implementation Guide, or STIG for short, which provides guidance for how to deploy Android on a US Department of Defense network. We've unified the STIGs for different OEMs under one Android STIG, which should make it easier for certification. Finally, associated components that help make Android deployable, such as Managed Google Play and Zero Touch, are validated under both ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2. Now, while security is important, we also know that privacy is equally important, particularly as end users increasingly intermingle their work and personal lives, even on devices intended for work. In fact, a 2019 survey from ESG Research found that 71% of respondents said they expect any personal information to remain private on their work devices. Android provides strong separation of work data from personal through the work profile. The work profile allows end users to have clear separation of work apps and personal apps on the same device. Even in cases where apps handle both personal and work app by design, for instance, a popular email client like Gmail or Outlook, the Android platform keeps this data in separate data stores and runs the apps in separate user spaces. This also means that if a user wants to turn work features off, they can do so with the click of the button, as you see here on the screen. Privacy is core to this model because it was intended to manage bring your own device deployments of Android. Enterprises can only manage the apps and data on the device that is theirs, while individuals' personal photos and apps cannot be seen or controlled by IT. Now, the challenge has been when enterprises have used this BYOD oriented approach for management of devices that they own. For instance, IT departments would ask us if they could fully wipe a device that they owned, which would be disallowed for a BYOD deployment in order to protect end users' information. The last thing I want carrying my own phone to work is to have all my photos or videos be wiped. You can imagine, however, if an IT organization owns the asset, they would need to wipe both personal and work data in order to reissue that device to a new employee. That's why, starting in Android 11, we will add additional asset management capabilities to the work profile, so it's more effective when a device is company owned. We've included popular requests like whitelisting what personal apps the user can install onto the personal side of the device and support for full device wipe, as I mentioned. Privacy of the work profile is maintained. IT cannot view what apps I've installed, and they can't see my personal data. Here's a way to think about it. With BYOD, IT can only manage its own data. With a company-owned device in this new framework, IT can decide, for example, whether I can install Tinder, but they won't know whether I've installed it or be able to view who I've swiped. Recently, you may have seen headlines of employees being terminated by their companies just for the fact that they were physically present around a protest. While organizations may need to access device location for things like asset tracking, instituting policies based on geofencing, or enabling enterprise workflows like turn by turn navigation, we don't believe that IT should track location without the user's knowledge. That's why in Android 11, when an organization requires location services, users will now be prompted and the UI will make it clear. On a fully managed device, a system notification will be triggered when the master device location policy is enabled by an IT admin. A notification will also be prompted when an admin silently grants location runtime permissions to enterprise apps. Now, so far we've talked about examples that mix work and personal use of devices. But Android offers a flexible management framework that organizations can mix and match to enable a variety of enterprise use cases. Enterprises can adopt BYOD without compromising corporate data. They can allow personal apps on corporate devices, but they can also deploy corporate devices for business use only, or even lock devices down to mission specific use cases. We think the improvements in Android 11 will only help make this flexibility more compelling to address enterprise requirements. Now, Let's shift gears to talk a little bit more about privacy broadly, and one change that will definitely affect developers. Many applications ask to use location in the background, but while you need location to, say, make turn by turn directions work, you probably don't need background location to find your local drugstore. Two major changes are coming. First, users will be able to decide the scope of how location is used. Now, we began this work back in Android 10, where we allow end users to decide whether to allow location all the time or only while the app is in use. In Android 11, a new feature will allow users to grant permissions to things like location for a one time use only. Second, later this year, we'll be updating Google Play policies to require that developers get approval if they want to access the location data in the background. We'll be looking at a variety of factors, including the value delivered to the user and whether the same experience can be provided without background location, and more. All apps will be evaluated against the same criteria, including those apps made by Google itself, and all submissions will be examined by Google reviewers. We'll start by enforcing these policies in August. So if you haven't engaged with the Google Play team about your location use cases, you should be doing so now through the Play console. If you're an enterprise developer, so you're building applications specifically for your own internal enterprise organization, we'll talk about some additional mechanisms you can use later on in the presentation. Now, we know location permissions are tricky. We hear both enterprise and consumer app developers sometimes find permissions get asked outside the scope of what their development team intended an app to do. This can be particularly true if you're on a really large team, or maybe the application is pulling in an external library that's asking for extra permissions that maybe you don't think are needed. Now, it can be hard, especially in a really large code base, and especially using external libraries to track down exactly what's going on with permissions. So, in Android 11, we created an API to handle these situations specifically, going from the complexity of this huge application you see on the left to specific callbacks that give you the information you need. In particular, you can register a callback like what you see on the right. You'll get information when a request is made for data that requires user consent, and then you can track down exactly where that is happening in the code and make any changes that you need to in order to do the right thing. Now, there's a ton of additional investments being made to protect the privacy of end users, including areas like storage, permissions, foreground services, and more. I encourage you to visit the Android 11 privacy page and be testing your apps against Android 11 now. All right, so now let's talk a little bit more about the investments we're making to make Android easier to integrate with and deploy. So, we launched Zero Touch in 2017 as an optional feature to allow device manufacturers to make it easier to deploy Android, starting with Android 8 and above. Zero Touch supports seamless enrollment and device policy provisioning. It means that when you use Zero Touch, you can ship devices directly to your employees, and those devices are ready to use out of the box with enforced management and policy controls. There's no limited to no IT intervention required. The framework supports provisioning a fully managed device as well as devices managed via a work profile. Zero Touch has grown tremendously in 3 years. You can now get devices enabled with Zero Touch from more than 40 different device manufacturers and from over 250 resellers. If your enterprise is not using Zero Touch today, we encourage you to take a look at it. We'll have some more exciting developments around around the Zero Touch platform later this year. App distribution is a key focus for enterprise IT and developers alike. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about exciting new features that we're adding to Manage Google Play. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Manage Google Play is a platform that allows developers to easily publish, restrict, and test applications that are designed for use within enterprise organizations. IT admins use Manage Google Play to select, distribute, and configure applications intended for end users. And end users use Manage Google Play to get a store experience that allows them to browse and use internal apps just as if they were downloading popular consumer applications like Google Pay or Google Photos. One area that we're investing in is app updates on managed Google Play. We hear from customers that commercial application developers may move too quickly, and IT doesn't get the time to validate that an app will work in their environment. So, later this year, we'll be allowing IT organizations to postpone app updates up to 90 days in order to provide additional time for integration testing within their IT environment. Conversely, we've heard from customers that some updates need to be installed immediately. For instance, when you're trying to address a critical security flaw. So, we'll be adding support for high priority updates. Those ensure that app updates get processed by a device even if normally set constraints like a Wi Fi connection or device charging aren't met. I talked earlier about policies that we're providing to the broader app ecosystem. And one area that we're investing in is to simplify the policy and publishing workflows for apps targeted to an internal IT organization. We know that some consumer policies don't make sense for enterprises. Let's take location as an example. There may be completely valid use cases for the use of background location in the context of an employer interacting with their employee. For instance, tracking vehicle speeds within a delivery company's delivery workflow, or using a geofence to manage data access. These policies might not make sense for the generic developer engaging with the average consumer. You can think about it this way: does my bank really need to know how fast I'm driving? Now, today, two methods of publishing already benefit from a faster review process with a reduced set of policies that enterprises need to comply with. Enterprise apps will still be analyzed for malicious behavior and security flaws, but we won't necessarily scrutinize the use of things like location services or SMS usage when apps are published specifically to enterprise employees through Managed Play. Later this year, all methods of app publishing will get these benefits. So let's talk a little bit more about that. There's three methods of publishing your app to manage Google Play today. If you don't have a developer account, your mobility management system may have already integrated publishing workflows into their own user interface using what we call the Manage Play iframe. This allows you to directly publish apps from your EMM, your Enterprise Mobility Management System, without having to describe metadata or tackle other heavyweight tasks. Now, we know many organizations have extensive application development efforts, and they might thus have a large number of apps, or they might want to support things like continuous integration and development. Or maybe your organization has a custom publishing UI or workflow that you want to support. You can integrate the process of publishing an app to manage Play with your IT systems by using the Google Play Custom Publishing API. Both of these methods support the reduced policy scope and streamlined review process that I described earlier. Now, if you're already using Google Play to publish applications to the wider Android ecosystem, or you need to support advanced controls like staged rollouts, then you can use the Google Play console to publish apps to manage Google Play as well. We'll be adding support for reduced policy scopes and streamlined review of apps to those apps published using the Managed Play through the Play console later this year. We know that the demands of app publishing change within organizations, so do note you can switch these methods as well depending on what your needs are at any given time. Those of you that already use the Play console may have noticed that the user experience has undergone a complete redesign, not just for Managed Play functions, but for apps published to the wider Android ecosystem as well. We're in beta right now, and so we'd love any feedback that you have. Check out the Android developer blog that introduces the new Google Play console beta for more details. Now let's talk a little bit about making development easier. Jetpack is a series of tools that the Android team has introduced that help developers follow best practices, including difficult to code areas like security, in order to improve application performance. It helps you eliminate boilerplate code, allowing you to handle custom tasks or common tasks seen in enterprise apps, like scheduling app functions to run in the background, or building camera functions to capture images or enable computer vision workflows. And finally, it helps you build apps that are resilient across a variety of Android versions, in some cases going all the way back to Android 5. If you're not using Jetpack today, we encourage you to take a look. it can dramatically simplify Android integration. There's a lot that we've added and improved for Jetpack during the Android 11 timeframe. And so to learn more, watch the What's New in Jetpack session on the Android 11 beta page. Speaking of easier integration, the Android Management API is designed to make it easier for developers to integrate Android's management solutions into their software stack, whether it is a standalone management solution like Google Identity Manager, or a line of business tool that needs to handle the configuration of Android devices in order to enable specific workflows. The Android Management API certainly has come a long way, and we've reached maturity since we first announced it 3 years ago. The setup flow is now feature rich and customizable. For instance, organizations can launch third party apps during the setup experience or customize it to their needs by using a VPN. We've designed the experience to feel completely native. It's now integrated with settings. We use notifications that are consistent with the platform, and there's no more launcher icon that can confuse users. We've continued to refine the Android Management API by taking the most complex aspects of management and boiling them down to a very simple API surface. You can see just how few lines of code are required to enforce a complex policy, like setting the minimum version of Android required and automating an action if the user doesn't comply with the policy. Now, the Android Management API continues to be a core investment to simplify integrating Android management features for our team. New Android management policies are now supported on day zero of the OS launch. We're also working to backport some platform features, like the new asset management capabilities for work profile management that I discussed earlier on corporate owned devices, to earlier versions of Android. And we're making privacy clear to end users through a new privacy dashboard. Now, I've talked a lot about the benefits that Android 11 is bringing to both IT organizations as well as developers building experiences on Android 11. I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about new features that will benefit end users and provide a better productivity experience. In Android 10, we introduced a new Work tab into the launcher to make the separation between work and personal data clearer to end users. In Android 11, we're expanding this concept of tab separation to other critical user journeys, making cross profile boundaries more intuitive. For example, you'll find these tabs in the share sheets, so you can share specifically to work users and work apps in an intuitive fashion. You'll also find this in Docs UI and settings, so users will be able to easily see the separation between work and personal accounts on a device. Now, sharing policies are often set differently by each individual organization. What's right for one might not be right for others. And since sharing options might be disabled by admin policies, we will be proactively providing users a message to help them understand the rules set by their company around sharing work content. You can see an example of this in the animation on the right. Since we launched the work profile, privacy-minded users have loved it. However, we've heard from some who want to merge some experiences when possible. One of the main challenges is that while a security engineer may think about the device in terms of clear separation, almost like two distinct phones on a physical piece of hardware, several core experiences do not neatly split between work and personal. For instance, as a user, I want to have a consolidated view of my day and calendar. I also want my phone to prompt me when a flight's scheduled, regardless of whether that's for business or pleasure. Obviously, we need to create a privacy oriented model that allows for these cross boundary experiences, ensures both end user and corporate data are protected, and also allows for both the admin and the end user to define whether such experiences are allowed. We're currently working with developers to bring these new merged experiences to market in the Android 11 timeframe, starting with the at a glance widget and calendars. If you have innovative use cases that you think are relevant to your company, please email us at connectedapps@google.com. Finally, we've all been in situations when we're using a laptop and we need to call a business or a customer, only to have to manually enter that phone number directly in our phone's dialer. This is now much more convenient between Chrome and Android. From Chrome, a user can initiate a phone call simply by clicking on a phone link. The phone dialer in Android will pop up, already pre-populated with the number, as you can see in this animation. This is what we call click to call. It's now available on Chrome and all Android versions as long as the devices are syncing with the same Google account. Be ready to see more of these innovative cross device interactions between Android and the Chrome browser. We're really excited to bring more functions to you in the future. Now, we've been working a lot on Android 11, and there's a ton that I didn't have time to cover in today's talk. We're super excited for the release, and I really hope that you are too. If you're building on Android, please be testing your apps now to ensure that they can be successful when running on Android 11. To learn more, I encourage you to check out the Android 11 beta site at developer.android.com/Android11. There you can find lots more information, including video talks from other teams covering a wide variety of topics, from design principles to changes to Android Studio, better support for new foldable form factors, commerce workflows, and more. For enterprise-specific features, check out the Android Enterprise Preview site. If you're looking to partner with our team, check out our new partner site, which you can find at androidenterprise.dev. And finally, if you're a developer or an IT organization, we encourage you to read the best practices on building for managed devices and using managed Google Play. You can find those links here on the slide. So with that, I want to thank you for the time and attention you've brought to today's presentation. I really hope that you're excited for all of the new functionality and capabilities that we're bringing into Android 11. Hopefully, we'll talk again soon.